I'm Chuck Betters with Mark Inc. Ministries. I want to welcome you to the 12 days of Christmas hope. This is day 9. And as I thought about what I would want to say to you concerning Christmas and the meaning of Christmas and all of the struggles that we've had in this past year, I want to remind you that Psalm 84 is probably, in my opinion, one of the pearls of the Psalms. I've preached on Psalm 84 many times, and it's a picture of pilgrimage. It's a picture of pilgrims on a journey. They are moving toward the goal of being in the temple of the Lord, being in the house of God. Later in that psalm, he would say something like, I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my Lord than to be anywhere else. He even coveted the position that the birds in the temple had. So the goal was the temple. The goal was the house of the Lord. But to get there, these pilgrims had to travel through what was called the Valley of Tears, the Valley of Baca. A tough journey, a rigorous journey, a dangerous journey. And they would have to travel through this desert place that was simply called the Valley of Sorrow, the Valley of Tears, because it was such a painful journey. Well, how were they able to negotiate the Valley of Baca? They were able to negotiate it because of others who went before them. He speaks in the psalm of going from strength to strength. Literally what that meant was that as these pilgrims traveled through the Valley of Baca, they would depend upon those who had gone before them to dig holes in the desert place, expecting those sudden downpours, those sudden showers that would fill those holes. And they would be able to drink from those holes and drink from the water that was in those holes. And then to dig more holes for the pilgrims who were coming behind them. It was a picture of covenant theology, of God's people working together to overcome sorrow, to go from strength to strength to strength. But it all depended upon those who had gone before you. You know, when we lost our son Mark back in 1993, we had people who went before us, people we called who had walked this walk, who had weathered the journey, so to speak. We needed to talk to people who were ahead of us in the process. That's really what Mark Inc. is all about. It's a picture of looking back, of God's people who walk through dangerous places, scary places, and they look back to help others who are walking that same walk coming behind them. That's what Mark Inc. Ministries exists to do, to offer strength to those who are traveling the same journey. You know, friends, when I was in Atlanta, shortly after we lost our son, Mark, I was struggling. It was a very, very painful time. I was at a conference, a pastor's conference, at a very large church there. And in a few moments between sessions, I went into the bookstore of this church. And when I went into the bookstore, I was looking for something to read, something that could help me cope with the unbelievable pain I was in during that time. And I examined this bookshelf. I went up and down the shelves and hundreds of books. And all the way at the bottom, all the way at the very bottom, tucked away, in fact, it was actually wrinkled up and moved toward the back, was a book called Lament for a Son. I picked up that book. That book, more than any other book, blessed me and helped me to get through one of the most difficult and painful grief experiences you could ever imagine. The reason that book helped me was because it was written by a man who had walked that walk. I was reading it from his perspective. He blessed my socks off, just that simple. Little did he know how, quote, by accident, unquote, I found that book. You see, that's what Mark Inc. Ministries exists to do, to look back, as Psalm 84 says, to dig the holes, so that others who are coming behind us can drink from the springs that we have prepared for them. That's what God's promise is to you at Christmas time. He promises to dig the holes. He promises to provide the drink. He promises when he says, he who comes after me, who seeks after me, who embraces me will never thirst again when I give him the water that will cause him never to thirst again. That's the promise God gives us. That's what Christmas is all about. It's a baby coming to dig the holes, to provide all that we need to come through a very difficult season. You know, that was a scary time for Mary and Joseph, a scary time for them to be able to endure. It wasn't all tinsel and trees and ornaments and all those things that we consider to be so important at Christmas time. It was pain, loneliness, fear, and yes, even a sense of grief, as so much was lost, knowing that they were about to give birth to the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So are you digging holes? Are you helping people who are coming behind you to experience peace in the valley of tears? Again, this is Chuck Betters. We are producing these videos called The 12 Days of Christmas Hope, produced by Mark Inc. Ministries, as we look back to try to help you who are walking in the same steps we had to walk. May God richly bless you during this Christmas season.